Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. If you're on the East Coast anyway, it's afternoon. My name is Angelica Sura. I'm a client experience manager with Blackboard. Welcome to Synchronous Remote Learning, teaching mathematics using a flipped classroom model. Our presenter today is Dina Jagodich. Dina is a mathematics professor at Frederick Community College in Frederick, Maryland. She teaches everything from the I hate math class to differential equations. She's been teaching for the past 18 years. She has a bachelor's degree from Cornell University in electrical engineering and 2 master's degrees from Johns Hopkins University in electrical engineering and applied mathematics. Before I turn it over to Dina, just a few housekeeping items. You'll find the chat to the right of the presentation window. If there are any questions, please type them in the chat and we'll get them answered as we go. No need to wait until the end of the session. And the captioning is right below the video player. And with that, I will turn it over to Dina.
All right. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. I'm going to do something that I do for my classes at the beginning of class. I've stolen this idea from a podcast I listen to. It's a podcast that's based off of people who listen to another podcast, which is kind of strange, at Tony Kornheiser's show. This podcast is called the Loyal Littles Podcast. And at the end of their interviews, they always ask fun, dumb questions. I like to start my classes with fun, dumb questions because I find students are a little nervous with starting off in a math class. So in the chat, I want everybody to answer the following question. In terms of toilet paper, are you an over person or are you an under person? Go ahead and type in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat and see what people are thinking of. Okay. Oh, a very enthusiastic over, I see. Okay, more overs, more overs. One of the reasons why I do this, and by the way, when I'm doing class, I never am recording this part of it. It gives us a couple of minutes. Okay, so now we're saying over is uncivilized. And the only time I can think of an under being okay, and I usually type in my answer, I'm an over person as well. I know people who will actually change it in other people's houses. That seems a little bit strong. But this is a great way to give people a chance to log in a few minutes late, and they haven't missed much other than the fact, we're warming up and I'm making sure everybody is actually awake and turning on their, they're engaging and not just pressing start and then going back to bed, because I do teach at 8 o'clock in the morning some days. So I do find this a nice way of starting class, and every day it's another silly question. The over and under, most people do over. We also do peanut butter crunchy or smooth, but I won't ask that one because we'll get way too distracted. It's one dumb question per session. So it also gives me a chance to, when people come in late and they're saying things like, oh, wait, what was the question? It's a chance for me to get everybody engaged early. So let's talk about the format of this class. We at our college call it structured remote. I really think it should be called synchronous remote. What it is an online class, but at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm teaching Calc 1 and my students are in class with me with their cameras off, but they will be chatting in the chat. They'll answer polls and things like that. We're finding at our college that there are a lot of students who can't easily get to campus, but don't want a fully online course. They want an instructor in front of them. So we found this format works really well. And right now we're sticking to mainly the 8 o'clock and the 5 p.m. classes, because those are times that seem to work for our students who really want this format. So let's talk about how to make this successful. All right, so let's go ahead and share my screen. All right, so ignore the Blackboard in the background for right now. This is how I structure my classes. For the most part, exams are about 50-55% of the final grade. Sometimes those tests are open book, open note. It depends on what type of test. But in addition to the test, we also have our homework. We use Newton, so it's an adaptive system. It's a little bit more difficult to fake out. I didn't used to have homework be such a larger percent, but I'm finding that it actually is helping students master the material. I have quizzes that are 10% and class participation, which is 5%, but to be honest, not worth it to me. It takes so much time to like each time check to see who's there. I'm just throwing it away because I'm finding students show up to class anyway, and I don't think it's just because of the 5%. I set up my weeks on Saturday. They run Saturday to Saturday. So there's a one-day overlap if they need some extra time on the homework. My weekly folders open at the beginning of the week on Saturday, and they include a bunch of things, including all my videos, which are done asynchronously. I've created those ahead of time. The videos are there, my notes are there. On Tuesday evenings, my quizzes are due. On Saturday evening, my homework is due. My Tuesday synchronous class, generally what I'm doing is answering any questions on that quiz that's on Tuesday. Now, that seems like it's basically then an open book, open note quiz, and it is. And that's okay because my quizzes are harder than the homework, and it gives me a link to what my tests will be like because my tests are paper pencil, they're not online. So I find that that really encourages student engagement. And then Thursday's class, we're focusing more on the current week's material. And when I say current week's material, I'm not reteaching things because I'm expecting students to watch the lectures. What I'm doing is going through student questions or pulling up examples that I know students generally struggle with. So my face-to-face time, it's not me lecturing, it's not me reading PowerPoints, none of that. We're just going through problems. And I'm finding students are using that in a way that it's helping them really understand the material and get more out of synchronous class than just me lecturing, which they could do on their own time. So let's go ahead and look at my Blackboard site. Let me pull this up. Okay, so this is a typical week. This happens to be my class from this semester, my Calc 1 class. And I had separated it out into weekly modules. So where I start is every week I do a very silly 2-minute video, and I'll pop this up for a moment. Let's see. All right, it's week 4. This is Calc 1. It's really nice right now. It's supposed to start snowing tonight, so I thought I'd do a quick video outside while I still can. Okay, so week 4. This is the last week before our next real test. Test B is the week after next. What are we doing this week? Probably the most important, not important, most annoying part of Calc 1. It is also important, but it is annoying. It's a lot of algebra. It's okay, I can only hearing myself for a little bit, but you get the feeling that these are very informal, quick. I mean, we're talking 1 or 2 minutes about what the week is about. And I do this for a couple of reasons. One, I think it emphasizes the flipped part of my classroom. The fact I am expecting them to do things outside of class before they come to class. I do have to admit, I always hide a bonus point opportunity in there. I'm either wearing a math t-shirt. One time I did it in front of my car. I have a license plate holder that has the digits, some of the digits of pi around it. And if they write what I've said is bonus in the video on their quiz, they get a bonus point on the quiz. So yes, it's pure bribery, but it does set them up to understand what we're supposed to be doing that week. Because even though we're meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays, really the material has already started, and I want to give them a heads up about what they can expect that week. And here's some of the comments that I've gotten from students. They like the weekly videos because it gives me a list of things to do, makes everything more personal, which I appreciate a lot, and it more motivates me to complete everything. The assignment list can be overwhelming, so the video makes it less so. And it shows that you take the time to be personal, which is important in online learning. They have to really get to know you as an instructor, you as a person, and not just the surveyor of knowledge of mathematics. One of my favorites, I like to watch the welcome videos in the morning because you always have a positive attitude. Even if I wake up cranky at 7:30 and not wanting to do any math, I'm never in a bad mood when I start class. So these, yes, they take time. I do a different one each week for each class. Every semester it's a different video, but it really does help emphasize the flip part of the classroom and giving them a chance to get to know me personally. Are the tests proctored? Good question. I gave my second exam today in class. So these structured remote classes, we do have the ability to bring them on campus, usually twice for a proctored exam when I'm actually in the room with them proctoring. I like that because, again, we can actually be in the same room together. If they can't attend class, then we do use, I believe it's HonorLock for proctored environment that way. So hopefully I answered that question. So what I'd like to do now is in the chat, give me an emotion face about what you think about this concept of a weekly 2-minute intro video to the week. So just go ahead in the chat and give me a face about what you think about that. You could be like, you could be sad. I don't judge. I don't judge faces, but I want to see some reactions. To do a reaction, there's a little smiley face next to the enter your message, and you should be from there be able to pick an emotion. I'm going to go ahead and do one myself. Personally, I love these. So give me an emotion for what you think about the concept of a weekly silly video. All right, I see people do it already. Awesome. Notice what I did. There was a pause there for a while. You cannot be afraid of silence if you're teaching in this format. I can wait my students out because once you do that, they start responding. So you're afraid of being inconsistent. I get that. There was the semester week that I supposedly didn't have COVID, but I was sick and I didn't post a video that week, but I explained why. And then my video this past week was me being pretty not healthy, but it was just a quick one. But again, it helps build that relationship with students that we would normally have if we were in a face-to-face setting. All right, so let's look at more of what I have on my Blackboard site. So you can see the quiz and the quiz solutions here. The quiz solutions appear after the due date for the quiz. On the Tuesday class, this is when we are going over the quiz questions. And if I pull up, actually, I think I already have that open. So this is what I use for, again, I'm using Notability. Well, I didn't say again. I will tell you at the end what I'm using, but this is on my iPad using an application called Notability, and I'm answering questions as people are asking them in the chat. I switch back and forth between colors, but I am very mindful. I do have colorblind students, so if I'm trying to emphasize something, not only do I switch the colors, but I do align tight squiggles, more drawn out squiggles. It's something that we don't often think about in terms of compliance, but it's something that some of my students have said, hey, can you make sure you're not using certain colors? If I know some schools are very concerned about notes like this are not ADA compliant in terms of being read by a screen reader. The software I use can convert text to or the handwriting to text or to math. So if I have somebody who needs a screen reader, I make sure I take care of that. So the Tuesday class, that's mainly focusing on the quiz. Thursday's class, these are just a bunch of questions that students have asked me. And these notes are great, but if you weren't in class, you would have no idea what on earth I was doing here. But I really like the ability to have these notes, because when students are trying to write down what you're saying as fast as they can, if they miss it, they don't feel panicked, because I end up posting these notes after the fact. And you might notice at the bottom I said +1 on test 1. That's because I made 3 mistakes in class. If I make mistakes in class, on the chalkboard behind me, I'll keep track. If I make a mistake that a student catches before I catch it, I might make a mark. If I do 3 of those one class, everybody gets a bonus point on the next test. They usually on average get 1 bonus point per exam. So again, it helps students get engaged and keep on top of what I'm doing. So let's go back to this. So these are the notes and the videos from my sessions. I'm not going to show you the videos, because those videos are unlisted because of FERPA concerns. Those are me and my students, and that's not something that goes outside of the class. What does go outside of the class are these instructions. So at the beginning of the class, these 2 sections are completely blank because we haven't had class yet. What is already posted is links to the textbook, videos that I've done, and my notes from my videos. And then there's the homework. Sometimes I'll include things like a Desmos activity, and that will be there. I don't require those, but I try to offer as many different ways of seeing things as possible. And I find that Desmos is, it's a nice tool. The videos are all closed captioned. They're all hosted on YouTube. I won't play this one, but you can, well, maybe I can play it and just not have to listen to myself. Yeah, we'll mute it. And you might notice my handwriting is, ever so much better when it comes to these, because I'm doing these offline. When I'm doing these lecture videos, I keep them less than 10 minutes. More than 10 minutes is just too much talking. And if it means that I have to break sections into smaller bits, I'm fine with that. I also like having the notes with them, because that way students can follow along and print out the notes and follow along what I'm doing in the video without having to write all the notes themselves. So those are all asynchronous. Again, if I'm going to lecture, having everybody together while I'm lecturing just doesn't seem like a very good use of time. I also have links to the textbook here. I find that students don't do all the different learning modes, and I'm really fine with that. I'm trying to offer enough so if somebody likes to read the textbook, if they want to, I do expect them to watch my videos, because sometimes I'll drop hints that I really do expect in there. But if they read the textbook, it's great. If they don't, it's okay too. If they don't use the extra Desmos tools that I include, that's fine. But it's there if they want to use it. Any questions so far? If you don't have a question, give me a thumbs up in the chat. If you do have a question, just type the question. Questions take longer to write, but thumbs up don't. So if you don't have a question, just give me a thumbs up. I think there's thumbs ups here. Let me check. I don't know if we have thumbs ups. Oh no. Well, then just give me a happy face. Oh, nope. People found thumbs up. You guys are faster than I am. Oh, here we go. I'm going to give a wavy hand. So somebody has a question. I don't address accessibility of notes until a request. Correct. Because this is what I do in the physical classroom. I write the notes on either the board or the iPad that's projected. I work very closely with our disabilities office, and we found that we have many fewer students with who need screen readers. We have a lot more students who have note-taking accommodation, and this is so much better for a student with a note-taking accommodation, because rather than me trying to guess who in the class would be a good note taker, they, and like everybody else, actually get my notes. So I'm finding that by doing this, I'm helping a lot more students. And again, if I need to make this screen reader accessible, it can be done. Closed captioning, I think sometimes can help people even not with hearing disabilities or deaf students who are deaf, but I think everybody can benefit from closed captioning. I think in terms of handwriting versus print, I haven't gotten the sense that that really is something that students are clamoring for. But again, if it's, we work very closely with our students. We have at Frederick Community College, we have a pretty significant population of students who are deaf, because there's a high school not very far from us. So when it comes to closed captioning, we're pretty on top of things as well. All right, so let us talk about, okay, this is all what isn't in the synchronous part. Let's talk about what is in the synchronous part. So I'm going to switch to, and I don't know what I did without two monitors. We use Blackboard Collaborate. I know a lot of people use Zoom. I personally, and I'm not saying this just because I'm at a Blackboard conference, I like Blackboard Collaborate because I find it easier to do polls on the fly. I find it easier to understand what screen is being shared. I'm very comfortable in the Collaborate environment. So that's what our school uses, different platforms. Most of us use Collaborate, and I always do. So with Collaborate, what I'm doing is generally sharing my iPad screen and going through questions and whatnot. But of course, me just talking isn't a particularly engaging activity. What I do the very beginning of class, after I do the fun, dumb questions, I do that even the first day. But I don't know about you guys, but well, tell me in the chat, how many of you have students that turn on their cameras? So say yes in the chat if they turn on their cameras, no if they do not. I should write my answer. Decidedly no. And we're also not allowed to ask them to do that. We're not allowed to request, well, I think we can request. We cannot require cameras on unless it's a proctored exam. Okay, so some schools it's the opposite, that it's actually required that they turn it on. So if you're in the environment like I am and students aren't turning on their cameras, then what you're teaching is a bunch of gray, floaty, kind of heady things. I don't even know it. I guess it's supposed to be a head. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. The first day of class, I have them click on this and upload a picture. It does not have to be a picture of themselves. What I use is Bitmoji. I love Bitmoji. And that's what I use for my picture. Students, I tell them, if you want to have your animals, if you know, the pet, if you want to have just a picture that represents you, it is so much nicer to teach to a room full of cats and dogs than it is a bunch of gray floaty heads. Nobody has gray skin. It's like zombies. So that's something I do insist on, and it actually works. It works really nicely. So I highly recommend you do that because I find it engages students in a way that I start to recognize people by their avatars, and it's kind of fun, and it beats the heck out of just gray floaty heads. Another thing I do in Blackboard the first day of class is point out that they can opt for, let's see if this will work. You can change your skin tone. And I said, if you're happy with Simpson's yellow, that's perfectly fine. If you would rather pick a different skin tone, go ahead and do that. Personally, I think this is a big change that Blackboard made whenever it was. And it's an important one. A lot of my students want to stick with Simpson's yellow, but a lot of them don't. And I think it's important to point that out to students because they might not realize it. And again, all of this is a way of engaging students and making them feel like they're not in some canned class. So what I've done with you guys already, that whole emoji face thing, I find that if I ask students, do you understand what's going on? I'll get, well, let's see, here's some typical chats that I get when I'm teaching. I copied and pasted this and got rid of all the student names. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? Did you understand this example? And I'll get thumbs up. Okay, that's fine. People will say, well, hold on, I have a question here. And then somebody will explain it, or I'll explain it. People will say thumbs down if they don't really get something. And that's great. I tell them that's a completely acceptable answer. And I'll also say, okay, this explanation I did, how does it make you feel? And let's see if I can find somewhere in here I have faces. You can tell this is math class. Here we go. So give me a face for how you feel about what I've just explained to you. And a student is actually going to do that flatline face or the eyes really big and open face. They might not have raised their hand in class, but for some reason, they're not afraid of using a emoji when I ask them things like that. So I intersperse my examples with a lot of check-ins with students. And I do thumbs up and I'll do emojis. Another thing I do are polls. In this platform that we're using right now, I could have done polls. But I bet if I did a poll right now and said, how many people in this room are tired of learning yet another technology? I have a feeling a lot of us would be saying yes, yes. So I'm not using polls in this environment, but trust me, I do when it comes to Blackboard. I find polls very easy to do. They're a quick way of getting a understanding of people, you know, whether it's a multiple choice or just a, hey, can we move on? Because that gives them a chance to give things in terms of a anonymous answer to their classmates. I see their answers and I tell them this. And it also gives me a chance to see who's actually not responding. So perhaps they're in class, but, oh, I've been disconnected. But that's okay, because I was done talking about that anyway. So let's see. Okay, the only other kind of, and I keep an eye on the time. I have 6 more minutes, so I should be good. The other kind of activity I do in class to keep the synchronous session engaging is I do, well, let's try this. All right. I want you to, if I have, let's see, I think you can see my chalkboard. X plus 1 equals 7. Okay, so what I want you to do is solve that for X. And I want you to put the answer in the chat, but do not hit enter, okay? I'm going to give everybody a minute or two to type in their answer to this question. And when I do that, we're going to all at the same time hit enter, okay? So hopefully I've given everybody enough time. I'm going to count down. When I say enter, we're all going to hit enter. So 3, 2, 1, enter. Okay, I have one answer. I do see Katie saying, hold on, Dina. That's okay, you did it a little bit soon. All right, so that didn't work so well in this. Okay, here we go. Now they're flowing.
They're coming through now, yeah.
So this is called the waterfall method. And what the waterfall method does is, well, let me tell you what one of my students said about it. I really like the waterfall method of responding during class. Professor Yagidich was able to see where we went wrong or right and professionally addressed our mistakes in a respectful way. So you're less concerned if you're in a class and you forgot the 2 in front of the pie or whatnot. First of all, I'm never going to embarrass a student, but it's less stressful to just all do it at the same time. I'm always very careful to keep an eye on the time. I'll say I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes, and I just sit there and look at the clock to make sure I actually give everybody the full 2 minutes, because otherwise, again, I'm really quick to click. So let's go back to sharing my screen. And what I'm going to go to now is a little summary of what I'm using for this. When I'm doing my lecture videos, I use Camtasia. I'm very, very particular about getting rid of my ums and ahs, and I really wish I wasn't, but I am. My trig, or not my trig, all my math videos are up on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com/c/D Yagidich, believe it or not, they're just math videos, and they've been up there for like 15 years or so, but I have like 750,000 views on these, and I don't teach that many students. So it's, I don't know, it cracks me up. Feel free to use any of those. They are listed under OER. So if anybody wants to use any of my videos, the link is there. I also use my iPad, and I use a program called, or an application called Notability. In class, I'm using Blackboard Collaborate. I use polls. I use the waterfall method, and something else. I see I wrote this down, and then, oh, emojis. There we go. So I use those to keep my class engaged. I also use my iPad. I use Notability. I use a bunch of different applications. I'll use Desmos a lot, and I often will cut and paste that into my Notability document so students have access to that. I'll use the graphing calculator if we decide that we need to use the calculator. But this iPad really does a nice job of being able to communicate with students in a way that feels natural and feels as if I was in a class writing the examples live. All right, so I think we're, well, let's leave this screen up in case people want to write down any of the apps that I use. But we only have 2 minutes left, but do we have any other last minute questions?
And I can start to go over some of the wrap-up items while anyone types any last remaining questions in the chat. So thank you to our sponsor, Blackboard Academy. Session recordings will be available in this platform until May 22nd. We want your feedback, so look out for an email next week for a link to take the event survey. And you can continue the conversation in the Blackboard community. So you can join discussion posts created during DTS and continue to share with the educator community. And I will post the link for this session right there in the chat. And also you will receive your certificate of attendance next week via email. But it looks like there are no remaining questions. Thank you so much to Dina for being with us today. Thank you for your engagement, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.